The IEC is due to approach the Constitutional Court tomorrow for clarity on the implementation of Section 47 of the Constitution. This comes after the Electoral Court overturned the IEC's decision to qualify former President Jacob Zuma from the elections ballot. The IEC had said initially that he could not appear on the ballot due to his prison sentence. In the meantime, Zuma has accused 6 Concourt judges of bias and asked them to recuse themselves from tomorrow's hearings. Well, following that story for us is Juniour Khumalo, who joins me in studio for more. Juniour, the IEC is adamant this has got nothing to do with anything else. It's about the freeness and fairness of this election.
Indeed, that's the argument that is being advanced by the IEC. They are saying they are also trying to say that they are not appealing the judgment by the Electoral Court. But in essence, that is exactly what they are doing tomorrow in court. They are appealing that interpretation of Section 47(1)(e) of the Constitution because the Electoral Court found that, so 5 members actually of the Electoral Court found that because the sentence could not be appealed by the former president, then it means that he is not affected by that section of the Constitution. And then 3 members also of the Electoral Court found that because he was given remission by President Cyril Ramaphosa, then he did not serve the 12 months that is also stipulated in that section of the Constitution. But the IEC is arguing that because this was not appealable does not mean it was not a sentence. It was still a sentence, and then it is so, which means that the former president is affected by that section of the Constitution, which says that if you are in prison, if you're convicted, sentenced to more than 12 months, you cannot stand to be a member of the legislature. The IEC argues that you cannot have a lawbreaker who is also now a lawmaker afterwards. So that's the argument that is going to be advanced by the IEC tomorrow, and we will see how that goes for the IEC.
We'll get to the latter point, in a second, but in their heads of argument, the IEC is arguing that the former president's eligibility may later be disputed, which will then affect, obviously, the credibility of the election.
Indeed. So they're arguing that should he stand and then basically win and manage to have a seat then in the National Assembly, then other parties might take the IEC's, basically the elections themselves, to the court and argue that the courts were not free and fair because an individual who is prevented by this section of the Constitution was allowed by the IEC then to take part in the elections. So that's the argument that they're making. They're saying they don't have anything against the former president or his party, Umkhonto weSizwe, but they want to try and ensure that there's a freeness and fairness of the elections. But we know the IEC has been back and forth in court. Yesterday they were in court. They were taken to court by 3 parties who are trying to be registered because they're saying that the online portal of the IEC failed them. So we know that today the IEC confirmed that that judgment is also going to be handed down tomorrow.
Going to be an interesting day in the courts. But back to, President Ramaphosa's remission of former President Jacob Zuma's sentence does not amount to a reduction of the sentence, which is what you are arguing. But we also know that the MK party had argued that effectively the President Ramaphosa expunged the sentence.
No, that is not correct. So the president did grant remission to a lot of prisoners. So they argued that the prison system was actually too full. So prisoners who had smaller sentences received that remission, and the former President Jacob Zuma was one of those prisoners who benefited from that. So we know that now they're trying to argue to say that because he didn't serve the 12 months, then he is not affected by that Section 47(1)(e) of the Constitution. But that, in its wording, it doesn't talk about it doesn't talk about the time served. It actually talks about the sentence, conviction and the sentence. The sentence was 15 months. It was more than the 12 months. So he cannot, according to that part of the Constitution, then go and serve in the National Assembly. So that is the argument that is going to be advanced by the IEC. But also there has been a lot of civil society organizations that have also approached the court to befriend friends of the court. One such is the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, who have also joined in as a friend of the court. And they are also going to be making that case to say that because that remission was granted to the former president, it does not mean that the sentence itself was reduced.
Well, it's going to be an interesting one. Of course, I mean, looking at the little side shows that usually play themselves out. Do we expect the president's supporters to be outside court to go?
Indeed, we spoke to the spokesperson of Concourt party. There's already a lot of divisions within that party itself, but some of those that remain loyal to the former president, Jacob Zuma, will be in attendance. There's also the expectation that the former president himself and his daughter are going to be in attendance tomorrow. So whichever way the court case goes, we know that the former president, Jacob Zuma, is going to come outside and address his supporters.
We'll see what happens. Juniour Khumalo, thanks very much. You will, of course, be keeping an eye on that for us tomorrow, and who will be bringing us all the news and, of course, views tomorrow once, in fact, from the time the court sits and all the way to when it ends. Unlikely, of course, that we'll get a decision tomorrow, but the IEC has said in its heads of argument that it would prefer, in fact, it would be proper if a decision is arrived at before this nation goes to the polls on the 29th of May. We will see if indeed that is what the Constitutional Court will do. But do we know about the recusal, what the position of the court is, Juniour?
Indeed, usually what happens is that the court itself is going to hear that request by the former president for the justices to recuse themselves. He said 6 of the justices who actually presided over that matter in 2021, where he was found to have been in contempt of court, should recuse themselves. So we expect that the justices will actually deliberate on that matter first before they actually listen to the merits of the case. So we're going to have some sort of understanding in the first part of the court case whether they are going to step down or not.
Long day at the Constitutional Court for you.
Indeed.
Juniour Khumalo, of course, our political reporter.